I just wondered, Novak, at the start of the match, there was a few catcalls and shrieks from the boxes, people in the crowd, and during the tie-break. Were you aware of that? Did that put you off at all during the first set?
Well, I heard they were engaged, so to say, in the match. I didn't hear exactly what they were saying because I was not that focused on it, but yeah, you could hear them. I guess they were having fun. Excuse me?
Didn't put you off?
No, not really.
On the left, please. No.
Novak, I'm trying to get my head around this a little bit, but you're 13-0 against top 10 players since Wimbledon. You've gone on this ridiculous streak that you're on right now. Can you just put into words where you were, say, Indian Wells, Miami, to where you are now? I mean, you got Grand Slams under your belt, you've had this great run, and just what kind of year this has been for you, just in general?
Well, it's a fantastic year. I don't like to compare, so I can't tell percentage-wise where I was at Indian Wells, Miami to now, but definitely there's a significant improvement in the game, in the overall field, the way the way I go about my game and the way I feel on the court in terms of confidence and comfort level. Obviously, I knew even when I was, far from my best, and that was around Indian Wells, Miami time and beginning of clay, that it will take time. I really trusted the process, even though it was frustrating at times. But in the end, the self-belief prevailed, and of course the support of the team that created this long-term strategy plan with me, and we had objectives and goals. And as I was mentioning before, US Open was a target where I would, hopefully peak and play my best, but it came during grass court season, so it came before, and it was obviously more than welcome in, in our overall plan. So, yeah, I mean, the run is phenomenal. I mean, I'm very grateful that I managed to turn things around that drastically in a way, because I was 22 in the world and I wasn't playing even close to my best. So, to know that I ended the year as number one, of course, unfortunately due also to the Nadal's injury, but the way I played in the last 5-6 months, it just makes me very proud.
Right, please.
You spoke earlier on this week about the next generation of player coming through. I was just wondering whether, as the competition is changing, has that made you, refocus in a way and it's kept you on your toes in a different way because it's a different sort of player you're playing against now?
Well, I mean, the new generation of tennis players, they bring a lot of power in their game, especially with the serve. I think Zverev, and Coric and Kachanov, big servers, and they're physically also very strong. It seems like they physically they mature a lot, maybe quicker than maybe my generation did. But I guess it takes them maybe mentally more time to put things together and emotionally than our generation. But at the same time, Nadal, Federer, and I and Andy, I mean, Stan, this kind of generation has dominated the sport for the last 10 years, and in terms of Grand Slams, and Del Potro, of course. So, it's definitely not easy for the next gen to break through there, but eventually it's going to happen. I mean, one of them will win a slam. But it's good. I think overall it's good for our sport to see new faces like, Tsitsipas and the players that I mentioned already, that, he won now the next gen final in Milan. That is completely different competition. Where lots of experimental new changes were tested that possibly can be on our tour as well. So, I think we are headed in the right direction because we need to somehow attract the younger generation to our sport, and we definitely need some changes.
Novak, well done tonight. There's been quite a compelling debate going on between Roger Federer and Alexander Zverev this week about the length of the tour. I don't know how much of that you've been following, but I know you'll have your own thoughts on it. Zverev said he'd spoken to you privately a lot, and you said you've been kind of thinking for 10 years or whatever that you thought the tour needed to be shortened because of the desire for a longer off season, for chance to recover properly and blah blah blah. But Federer also made quite a compelling point, and a few of the kind of lesser known doubles players have kind of said that these extra events, the length of the season, actually gives tennis more opportunity to have more jobs, more lower down ranked players the chance to thrive, and this is kind of a top 10 problem rather than those lower guys. Just wondering if you, as a guy on the Players Council, had a sort of solution to both issues, whether you thought maybe there could be more events at the start of the season for something like the lower ranked players as almost kind of qualifying period, perhaps, for like the main event for players ranked 100 and beyond, or whether you've got any other sort of suitable idea that can tackle both issues.
Thank you for your question. I mean, it is certainly a valid question, especially at this time in this era of the tennis, where I feel like lots of the top players, but also council members in the last couple of years are very proactive and very involved in this kind of particular matters, and especially with scheduling and all the the calendar, possible changes and adjustments and introductions of the new events and maybe alternation of the other events. It's not that simple. As you know, our structure is 50% of players' tournaments, so everything has to be voted on the board. For certain things, you need supermajority of votes. Some things president decides. Most of the times, players and tournaments don't really agree on things, so it's kind of conflict of interest. But it is what it is. And specifically about the calendar, it's true. I do think it should be shorter, with more quality and focus on on some big events, and maybe not that spread out. But at the same time, I understand the point of creating more job opportunities, and I don't say that we should take away tournaments, and maybe we can switch it around. We have different options. Maybe at the end of the year we can end up last couple of weeks with South American swing, or maybe 250s, or maybe some 500s, and end up the big tournament season a bit earlier. So everything is on the table, but as I said, it's not that easy, because you need to first of all discuss it and vote it in the council. Obviously then it has to go through the tournaments, through the board. The complexity of our sport is the fact that we have so many different ownerships of tournaments. We have private owners, we have agencies, we have ATP, ITF, Grand Slams, federations, and it's just to be able to really say, okay, let's have a blank paper and just move things around, congest this, this spread it out, or whatever, make the ideal calendar. It's not that simple, because it has to go through different filters. But tennis is the longest season of all sports. It starts January 1st, ends November 20th. Full on, more or less every week you have tournaments, and of course we don't play every week, but if you're competing for number one of the world, and a lot is at stake, so you always have to when the season is on, you're always there, mentally and preparing, and looking for the best ways to perform your best, to win tournaments, to win points, and end up as number one, which is the ultimate challenge of our sport. So I think good thing is that we're discussing this, and obviously whether or not something will change, we can't predict that, but we're working on it.
Last question on the left, Martin.
Novak, I remember being in Belgrade in 2010 when you won the Davis Cup, and it was kind of bedlam and crazy stuff. You having your hair shaved on the court at the end of the tie. Do you think it's sad that they're going to lose that home and away football crowd type atmosphere in Davis Cup, especially in the semis and the final? Yes,
there's been a lot of discussion about it, and I do agree with your point, and many players pointed out that they feel sad because that home and away was probably the very thing that attracted all the players and fans to this competition. But at the same time, in order to change something, you need to also sacrifice something. So I guess for this kind of a format change, you had to take away something, and that was it. But at least they kept this qualification week, so to say, playoff week in February, where you can at least have once a year, Davis Cup tie at home.